Samantha, thank you. Latest about Northern Rock now. House prices too. Joining us is housing market analyst Jonathan Davis from website housepricecrash.co.uk, which gives an indication, Jonathan, perhaps about where you think this might be going.
There's going to be a crash.
Why?
Oh, lots of reasons. We have to understand that the bubble has been created by too much credit being made available.
Cheap borrowing.
Absolutely. Well, yes, that's aligned to it. Interest rates have plummeted in the last 10 years, or they've been rising in the last few years. If you could fog a mirror, you could borrow as much as you wanted. And then, of course, we've had the rise of the buy-to-let investor. In the last 10 years, it's grown 35-fold. And quite simply, many of these speculators have got into the mania. Well, this is all reversing.
The problem is, though, that we have a severe housing shortage in the country. There isn't the stock to go around. And market conditions, therefore, dictate that they will keep the prices buoyant because, you know, people will pay what they want to get the property.
I'm simply not convinced that there's a shortage of property. There's a shortage of property at a reasonable price. But you look at your local papers, you'll see reams and reams of property pages, property for sale, and indeed for rent. There is actually an oversupply of property. The fact is the buy-to-letter has propped this market up by buying at the bottom, so chains have been able to complete. Now those buy-to-letters have stopped buying, chains will not complete. Eventually there will be people who have to sell, perhaps by divorce or redundancy, or they need to move. They will reduce their price, and that's what will exacerbate the situation.
What about the mortgage side of it, though? Because certainly a lot of people say that the direct consequence of Northern Rock's problems is that they will make perhaps mortgages more difficult to get, that people will look at your earnings ratio, for instance, and think perhaps we won't risk this, and certainly they'll become more expensive as the extra costs get passed on.
Absolutely. A significant proportion of the lending in recent years has been subprime, the phrase we've heard from the US. But we have as big a problem in the UK. The Northern Rock has been lending 125% of the apparent value of a property. Other lenders would lend without proof of income. Now, with the credit crunch happening right now, that credit availability has stopped.
Yeah, although a lot of experts say that the Northern Rock business model is completely different to other building societies and banks, and that the market, the city, has known that Northern Rock has had a particular problem, and that even though they've taken a fall, it doesn't necessarily follow that the others will.
There are many smaller banks in the subprime arena who have been lending to people without proof of income or very high multiples of income. And indeed, the larger banks have been quite happy to lend 6 or 7 times people's incomes on £20,000 a year. This has been crazy. It will stop. It has pretty well dried up already. And that's why people will not be able to get the mortgages that they've been able to get previously. They will not be able to pay those prices.
Right. The problem is that a lot of people cried wolf about the housing crash for several times, saying, this is the time, you know, get out, the bubble's going to burst, and it's not happened. Why is this time going to be different?
I think we have to understand that I believe that we would have a crash right now had the Bank of England not cut the interest rate in August 2005. Since then, we've had 5 interest rate rises. I might remind you that Mervyn King, the governor, voted against that interest rate cut, and I'm pretty sure he's behind the rises since. So what's different this time? 1, we have a very clear credit crunch. 2, we know buy-to-letters are now selling rather than buying. And 3, interest rates have risen 9 times since 2003. The crash is happening right now.
People are hurting. When we say a crash, what does that actually mean? I mean, does it mean that the house prices are going to come tumbling down, or is that inexorable rise just going to be halted for a while?
Well, I know that vested interests are saying that rises will reduce. I'm actually saying that prices will fall. I don't expect that to happen this year. We're already practically into the last quarter of the year. But by next year, I believe we'll see a small fall, and it will continue for a number of years.
And if we do that, we are then talking about getting back to those problems of negative equity and all those things that affect confidence elsewhere in the economy.
There will be huge numbers of repossessions and huge numbers of personal insolvencies, and this will absolutely spill over to the general economy.
Jonathan, thanks for coming on and cheering us up this Sunday morning. Thanks very much indeed for your time. Top stories for you.